Hello my beautiful crafty friends, I'm Katya with Lunar Sun Creations and I have another project for you, perfect for the holidays. I'm using the Christmas recipe paper collection from Vectoria Designs and we are going to create, guess what? A Christmas recipe book. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Let's get into it. Okay, so let me show you what it is we're going to be making today. We're going to be doing a recipe book. So we're going to be using just things from the dollar store. I've got a binder, I've got some page protectors. So pretty much everything besides the pattern paper and the adhesive. Well, even the glue actually I got from the dollar store. So it's a very simple project and it doesn't take a lot of supplies. So we've got kind of almost like collage kind of pages with the journaling pages in the center, and then we've used all of the ephemera and everything to decorate the pages, and then they can slip out very easily so that you can write your recipe. And I've got every one of them as a 2-page spread, so you can kind of do all the ingredients and then the instructions on the other page. And then there's also quite a few pages that are either like half size or just different sizes, just to add some interest so it's not all the same thing. And I put them especially in places where it was the journaling page didn't have a whole lot of room to write, so I've added in some extra places to write there. And then this one has a part that opens up this way for extra room. I've got some like cute little corners on the pages and I just think it's really, really cute. Here's another half page here. So a lot of kind of collage work, some doodling in there. We've got the little folder tabs on the ends of some of the pages, the edges of some of the pages, to designate what section of the recipe book you're in. So I think it's really, really cute. This one has a piece that goes out to this side. And then we've got another half sheet down here. And then the back, and then we've got one more half sheet here. Okay, so I think it's super cute and it's quite easy to put together. So I will first show you all the supplies that we will need, and the nice thing is that there's barely any measuring whatsoever. This is very much an eyeballing it kind of project. You barely have to measure anything. And then I'll show you the paper collection and then we will get crafting. Okay, so the supplies that you will need for this project, we will need some score tape and or wet adhesive. This is just a regular Elmer's school glue. I just put it in a smaller bottle. You will need some scissors or a paper trimmer. If you don't have a paper trimmer, you can use scissors for everything. I will be using both for different things. You will need either a binder, like just a regular 3-ring binder, or a kind of plastic duotang with the little 3-hole tabs. So you can slot pages into it and keep them secure. So one of those two things. You will need some sheet protectors with the 3-ring holes. Some white 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and optionally some distress ink and an ink dauber, just to distress the edges a little bit and give them a little bit more of a rustic feel. And then of course you will need your patterned paper. So I will just quickly go through the patterned paper. I'll bring you in a little bit here. Okay, so I've printed out the largest journaling pages. There's 3 sizes. I've printed out the largest ones and I've printed them out just on a slightly heavier than copy paper. And they're super, super cute. Love the imagery on them. So there's quite a few. They've done all kinds of gorgeous imagery on these. Look how pretty that is. Okay, so there's quite a few of them. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. I can't remember how many I counted, but there's so many beautiful ones. And then we've got these I've printed out on an 80-pound silk cardstock. So we've got the cut-aparts, pockets, tags, all kinds of things that we can use to decorate our pages. I love how many extras they include in this. We've got some like faux postcards. More cut-aparts. Definitely going to be using a lot of these tags in this project. Some nice words. Okay, and then we've got some beautiful full-page images that we can use for like the front and back covers and the inside covers. Okay, and then some of these more simple ones I've printed out multiple times. And then I've got the borders, which will be really nice for decorating. So a lot of these patterned ones I've printed out a couple times because they're going to kind of be the background for each of our journal pages. You'll see what I mean in a few minutes. Some pinwheel candies, candy canes, some plaid, checkers. Oh, I printed a lot of the pinwheels. Oh, this is a different pinwheel. And then these are all the kind of solid colors, which are really nice to allow your eye to have some rest. Oh, and then we've got one more of the cut-aparts. Okay, so those are our papers. Okay, so our first step is going to be to cut our journaling pages in half. So right down the center here. So cut each one that you want to use in half. If you want to use your scissors, that's fine, but a paper trimmer is definitely a speedier way to go. So trim all of these in half. And then we're also going to cut out all of our little fussy cuts. So I'm going to do most things on these pages. We're going to kind of decorate each page as if it was a traditional scrapbook. So we're going to be putting our half journal page onto a white sheet of cardstock so that there is, you know, maybe 3/4 or an inch border, and then we're going to be putting it onto one of our fancy decorative papers like that, and then using some of the cut-aparts to kind of embellish it in different places and the borders and stuff like that. Okay, so a little bit more on the traditional scrapbooking kind of vibe, where we're doing each page like its own kind of little layout. So the pages that you cut apart that went together will sit on opposite sides of the page. So one will have all the ingredients and one will have the instructions. So when you open it up in your binder, you'll have both of them. So you kind of want to do two similar so they kind of match. Okay, but for starters, get all your journal pages cut in half and get all of your fussy cuts cut. And I'll be right back once I have done that. Okay, so I just want to give you a couple tips about fussy cutting. So first, use smaller scissors, sharp scissors, and as you're fussy cutting, turn the paper, not the scissors. See how my scissors are staying in the same place? And I'm turning the paper as opposed to the scissors themselves. And that will make fussy cutting a little bit easier. And then the inking of the edges will also make it easier in the sense that if you're not a very good fussy cutter, then the distressing the edges will mask any imperfections in your fussy cutting. Okay, so I'll just show you inking the edges real quick. Okay, so I'm just going to go just lightly around all of the edges. I'll show you one where my fussy cutting isn't awesome. So like anything that has like lots of detail like that, I'm not very good at that either, but once you ink it up, you cannot tell that you haven't got it perfect. It really masks all those imperfections. Okay, so I have got my entire pile of all my fussy cuts. Okay, I've got quite a few. I pretty much cut out everything. All right, so I'm going to ink all the edges of all of those and set them aside. And then the next step is to take your journal pages. Okay, so the ones that keep the ones that go together, and we are going to adhere them onto, I'm just using copy paper, white copy paper. I did forget ATG gun does help a lot in this. You can use the score tape, but this is definitely a faster way to go. So I'm just putting, get everything else out of your way. Putting the tape around the edges and then just a couple lines in the middle. Okay. And put that with a bit of a border. You want about 3/4 of an inch of a border, something like that, all the way around. Okay, and then take your trimmer or your scissors and get that even all the way around. I'm just eyeballing it. But I mean, if you want to measure it exactly, feel free to do that. Oh, that might be a little bit less than I wanted, but okay. So do that with all of the journal pages that you'd like to put into your recipe binder. Okay, and then I'm going to grab some of the pattern paper that has, I try to like look at the details in the journal page itself, and because that gingham ribbon is here, I'm going to use the gingham pattern for this one and glue that down. Okay, so I'm putting that into the center. Okay, and then using your fussy cuts, you can kind of decorate the edges. Okay, so I'm going to put maybe the gingerbread man down there. Maybe we'll put a bow up here and just use a few of the fussy cuts and just kind of, you know, decorate around it. You can even use a gel pen and do some like doodles around it. Actually, I think that might be a cute idea. So I might just do some doodles around the edges. Of course, this is definitely optional, but just an extra fun little thing to do to decorate your page. So I'm just gonna add, just doing a little bit of doodle in there, and just gonna add on some extra bits. I might add, let's see, let's do one more maybe. So I'm just going to use a regular wet adhesive for the cut aparts. Okay, so just kind of go through them and decorate them the way you like, and I'll come back after I'm done my doodling and I will show you the next step. Okay, and then you just put your completed pages into the page protectors in your binder, just like that. Okay, I've done a second spread here, but this journal page doesn't have as much room to write. So what happens if you have a bigger recipe and you don't have room to write the entire thing on these two journaling pages? Okay, well, I'm going to show you how to fix that. We're going to use one of the page protectors. Just going to move this out of the way for a second here. So we'll use one of the page protectors. You're going to cut a piece of either chipboard or heavy-duty cardstock. And we're going to basically make a half-size page like this. So I've got a piece of cardstock that is the same width as one of these journal pages with a white border cut off. Okay, so cut it to the width minus the white part there. We're going to put this inside the page protector. And then you're either going to use scissors or a paper trimmer. And you're going to cut off what's hanging off of, like, outside of the chipboard, but you're going to keep about close to an inch. Okay, so now what you've got is a page that's open all along the side, but still closed at the bottom. Now we are going to cut this bottom piece, okay, so that it is open. And then we are going to place some score tape right along the very edge of where your chipboard or cardstock is inside. Make sure that it's like close, that whatever you have in chipboard or cardstock is like pressed up against the edge here. Okay, and now we are going to trim off the excess file folder that is beside it. And if you run your scissors along the chipboard or along the score tape, then you should get a pretty good line. And then you're going to remove the tape backing. And now you're going to fold this piece that we have left. We're going to fold it over so that it adheres to the score tape. And then anything that's overhanging, so see how we've got a little bit of a flap here, so we're going to trim that off. Should be able to slide your scissors all the way up to trim it off. Okay, and now you've got a half page that will fit two of the journal pages. So you can either put your journal page in like that and then have another one. We're going to remove this. So you can either put your journal page in slide it in there. Okay, keep in mind that you'll have another one on the back side. So you can keep it like this and cut this part off so that it's just the journal page size, or you can adhere the journal page to a piece of cardstock on the back and the front and then decorate, like use some of the embellishments up here and keep it as like a tall half page. Okay, so your choice on what you want to do there. So I want to make sure that these all kind of match, so I've chosen these two as what I'm going to adhere to my white cardstock. And don't worry about this. I know you can see the score tape, but we are going to use those borders that are in the pattern paper to cover that up afterwards. So we'll adhere our two journal pages on. And now that you know how to do that, you can create pockets of different sizes. So you just need to use different pieces of chipboard or cardstock to give you something like stiffer that you can fold over. Otherwise it's the page protectors are too flimsy and it's too hard to do unless you have something to kind of wrap that flap around. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so this one can go on this side and then we can decorate the top a little bit. So I'm going to put this up here. And then over here. Okay, and then we'll just slide that into our newly made page protector here. And put it in between our pages. So then we have a little bit of extra room and it just gives some extra interest. So you can do it, like I said, half size, or you could do it lengthwise like this and have it just at the bottom. So many different ways that you can create a different size of page protector. There's also this option. So this is really hard to see. Let me put something in it. So this is a card sleeve. So I make homemade cards and this is what you'd put it in to protect it. You know, like you get when you buy cards, a lot of them have like a protective sleeve on them. So this is a 5x7 card sleeve and it does already have a strip of adhesive on it. So you can use those and just remove that adhesive strip and adhere it to the back side of a page, and then it will open up and you can put your extra piece in there. I buy mine in large quantities from Uline, but you can get them at most office supply stores will have something like this. Okay. I don't really mind this edge. Like, I don't feel like you can even really see it, right? But if it does bother you, then you can use one of these border strip pages. Cut a border strip. I like this one because it kind of matches the plaid here, and you can just adhere a border strip over top of that little edge, and that way it also kind of gives like more of a, you know, recognition that this is a separate thing. So up to you if you want to cover that up or not. Okay, but that's one way to do it. Okay, so let's move on let's do another spread. Show you a couple more things that you can do. Okay, so I've started this one the same way. Journaling card on a piece of white, trimmed down, and then on our patterned paper. Okay, so both sides I've done the same thing. Again, I'm just using some of the little ephemera and cut aparts to decorate it. I'm using my wet adhesive to adhere them on. I do like to use my finger to go over the wet adhesive so it goes right to the edges so you don't have parts that are gonna start to lift up. Okay, so I'm just decorating the page like we did with that first one. But what I really wanted to show you on this spread is that I have added photo corners, or like, you know, faux photo corners. So all I did was cut out a 2x2 square of the colored paper. You could do 1.5 inch square, whatever size you want, make them as big or as small as you want, and then cut it in half, ink up the edges, and then it just adds quite a bit. It really jazzes up the page with these photo corners, and then you just add some of the elements like you normally would. So that's another idea. So I'll finish adding my elements on here, and then I'll show you another way that we can add a partial page using the file folders, just so you have a whole bunch of options. Okay, so I've got my 2 pages decorated the way I want them to be decorated. So we'll add them into our sleeves here. Okay, so what if instead of having a piece that's like a half size coming from the center, you want an extra piece coming from this side that you can open this way to give you more writing room? So let's do that now. Okay, so I've got 2 journaling cards, or journaling pages, I should say, just adhered to a piece of cardstock with a small border, okay? So now we're going to take another one of our page protectors. Okay, we're going to put this into our page protector. So this is going to act as our guide, our cutting guide. Okay, so we've got our journaling pages in there. Now we're going to cut off this part. So we're going to leave about 1 inch. You can do it with scissors, like I said, but I do find that it is easier with the paper trimmer. I'm just not a very straight cutter, really. So trimming off this part that has the holes. And then I'm also going to trim off just above the top. I just want it to be the size of the journaling pages. Okay, so got rid of that. Now I'm going to add some score tape on the inside of this just to close it. Might even do 2 actually. I'll do one a little bit closer to the actual page. Okay, so I've got 2 strips of score tape that are on this part. So we've got our, this is open now because we cut it. So now we're gonna remove the backings from these. Make sure that your piece is nice and snug in there. And we're going to remove the backing strips. So do the inside one first. before you let it adhere, make sure that that journaling card is nice and snug in there. And then let the top part fall. Okay, and then we'll take the other piece off here. Okay, so that's nice and snug in there. Now I kind of messed up my corner a little bit, so I might actually trim off this extra bit that I have, because that corner is going to bug me. So I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to trim this off. So it will just be the one strip that I'm using to close it, which is totally fine. Okay, so I still have this part here, which is what I'm going to attach to the back side of the page that we just finished. Okay, so I'm putting a piece of score tape on the top side now of our page protector right at the edge. I'm going to remove the tape backing. And now you can have it right at the bottom, you can have it at the center, top, wherever you want it to be. I'm going to do mine at the bottom. Okay, and you're just going to line it up as straight as you can. So now you've got a piece that opens like that. So it's attached to the back side right here. And now you can decorate your page in a way, again using those border strips or however you want to decorate to hide that. I mean, I think the border strips is probably the best idea. All right, so I also wanted to show you that you don't have, so far we've been using the journaling cards, I keep saying cards, pages. We've been using the journaling pages on white and then adding them to one of our decorative paper backgrounds, but you don't have to do it that way. So you can go the route of like slightly more traditional in the scrapbook kind of aspect of things. So for instance here, I'm just going to use the white lined paper and I'm going to decorate it full size with a bunch of the elements and a journaling card. Because you know, Vectoria Designs gives you so many fun things to work with that it almost feels shameful to not use them all, you know? So I want to use all these fun elements that I've cut out of here. Okay, so I think I'm going to go with this. So I'm going to adhere all of these down. And like I said, you can like doodle around them, like make it your own. There's so many ways that you can make this really creative. But I think I'm going to stick with this and I'm going to adhere all of these pieces down. Okay, so do as many sets of pages as you would like to do. And then we'll do the kind of front and back covers. So I'm using a full sheet of the pattern paper, but it's slightly too small for to cover the inside of the binder. So I'm going to adhere it down and then I'm going to use strips of the pattern paper that I've cut to do like a border all the way around. So that's the plan. So I'm going to put this down first. Okay, and then we'll put the strips around it. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing on the front and back covers on the inside and the outside, where I'll use a full sheet of the pattern paper and then I will border it with some of the other patterned paper. And I might even use a pocket on this front inside cover. Make the borders as wide as or as narrow as you want them to be. This is all about your personal aesthetic. Okay, so there's that. I think I'm going to use one of the pockets that they include in the kit. It's not quite as wide as the whole page, but I'm just going to maybe put it on the side. Actually, I kind of like it in the center. I'm going to put it here for any extra recipes that you might print off or something and don't have time to like write out yet. Okay, so I'm just going to put some score tape on the... There's 3 sides that you have to fold back and then put score tape on them to create your pocket. And I'm just going to put it down on the bottom at this, like the center bottom. And then if you print something off on your from your computer or something, you can just kind of fold it in half and tuck it in this pocket until you're ready to write it in your book. Okay, so I'm just going to center this down here. And then I think I'm going to put one of these postcards up here as well, but I'm going to mat it with a different color first, just so it kind of pops. Okay, let's put it on white first, and then we'll put it on a color. Okay, so there it is on white, and then I'll mat it on maybe some solid red. Okay, I'll put that on, and then I'll do the same kind of thing for the back cover and the outside of the back and the front covers. Do the same kind of process. Okay, so our final step is actually optional. You don't have to do it, but I've cut out some of these kind of tags that would let you know what section you're in, like cookies or cakes or drinks or whatever. So I'm going to put them on the sides of the pages. So I cut one out and I kind of rounded the corners just to make it easier to cut out more of those, the same shape. So it was just easier to trace something that didn't have a lot of extra lines. So I've cut out 6 of them, and I'm going to be putting them back to back onto the sides of our pages. Okay, so there's this one here. I had to make my own little area where you could write, but I've got adhesive, like score tape on the back of one of them, and I'm literally just going to sandwich them together on the edge of one of these books. I'm actually going to put one piece of score tape on the bottom of this just so the whole thing is adhered. Okay, so match it up over here. Okay, so there's one. Make sure you can see that. So there's one, and then I'll skip a couple pages and put another one. So it depends on how many pages you have and how many, you know, like how many cookie recipes, how many whatever different kinds of recipes you have, which will determine where you place these. And I'm going to place them at different heights, like along the page, so that they're easier to get to and open. So I hope I gave you some really good ideas on how you can use the journaling pages and all the ephemera and everything to create your own recipe book. And that way it's like very personalized and exactly how you want it to be. And I hope you enjoyed making it. There are a lot of journaling pages in this collection, so I didn't use them all. You could definitely make probably about twice the amount of pages that I have made, so you can keep going and make as many as you like. But I think this was a really cute project. Okay, and there we go. I'll just show you what I've done on the front and the back covers. So that's the front cover. Got the pocket there and one of the cards there. And then on the back cover, fairly simple. So one of the plain colored papers with the pinwheel border, and then a couple matted ephemera. And then on the cover, I went Magical Mary Recipe. I wish it had an S on it. It doesn't say recipes, it just says recipe, but you get the idea. And then there's the spine, and there is the back. All right, so there is your recipe book. Thank you so much for crafting with me, and if you are watching this on my channel, Lunar Sun Creations, I'd love it if you gave this video a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. It really does help this channel to grow, and I truly appreciate it. All right, I hope you're having a beautiful day. Bye!